Hi, I'm Nina Atchison and welcome to Teachers Talk, where we explore the lives of real teachers here in Australia. I have with me today Julia Young, Principal of Sydney Adventist College. Hi Julia, welcome.
Thank you, Nina. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. Now Julia, I'd love you to share a little bit about your life, and we'll start with your childhood. Tell me about where you grew up.
Okay, well I was born in Hobart but didn't get to stay there long. My parents were both teachers, and when I was 6 months old, Dad took a call to work in New Guinea.
Right.
So we went up there when I was 6 months, and they were expecting to be in this beautiful idyllic little lagoon with palm trees, etc. But when they arrived, it was a mosquito-infested swamp. Mum wasn't that keen, but it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Dad was a teacher there, and in the morning before they started class, they had to clear the crabs off the classroom floor.
Really?
There were open eaves around the house, so Mum and Dad slept with a shotgun by the bed.
Wow.
And he got a bit of a reputation as a good shot for shooting the snakes that would come in through there.
Really?
Yeah. So
wow, that's just another world, isn't it?
It is another world, but it was amazing for me as a child. I look back now, like I grew up in New Guinea and we shifted to a few other countries, and I work in a school that's a multicultural school, and I didn't realise it then, but it was like God is preparing you for your work for Him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, how old were you when you ended up coming back?
I was 6 years old.
Right, so you actually went to school over there.
I did, yes.
Wow.
I started my first school in a little mission compound called Kabayufa.
Right.
And it was just a little one-room school, but I remember it clearly.
Do you remember your teacher?
I don't remember the name of the teacher.
Yeah.
I remember it was a lady, and I have met her since.
Really?
And talked to her.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing experience.
That's fabulous.
We get to see, the Sing-Sings in the villages and visit around. We had pet dogs and cats. Actually, our pet dog was an Alsatian called Bonza, and apparently he was a nice food item because unfortunately the natives tried to, they poisoned him and he died because they wanted to eat him. But
oh no!
Yeah,
wow.
We had many gorgeous experiences there. Very friendly people.
Yes.
Mum and Dad started the first Pathfinder Club.
Really?
In Papua New Guinea while they were up there, and did a lot of work, not just in the classroom obviously, but on the farm and with gymnastics and different things like that. So it was like you're immersed in a life with Mum and Dad as missionaries where God is just all around you, and it's a natural part of who you are and what you are.
Absolutely, that's great. And I suppose being missionaries in a country, and you know that you're missionaries, you have that in your mind, and your whole attitude is just to serve, which is just, that's so fabulous.
Yeah. Actually, when I first started school, Mum and Dad gave me a little gift to come out. I couldn't wait to start school, drawing the big E and things like that. Yes. And they actually gave me my first Bible as a commemoration.
And you still have it.
And I still have that.
That's so special.
It was King James, and I had little pictures here, and I remember that, and I've still got flowers that I pressed. They're still there, so it's a lovely memory.
That's great. Yeah. That's so special. So you came back when you were not six,
yes.
Right?
Came back to Newcastle.
Okay.
And Dad initially wanted to be a minister and had changed to teaching when he was at Avondale, and he got called because of his work to be an assistant youth leader.
Right.
In New South Wales, in Newcastle, and so he worked there for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then got called to South New Zealand.
Right.
So I was 9, and I guess that was really a formative part of my life.
Yes.
Formative part of me making my own connection with God and my commitment to, a formal commitment to Him through baptism while I lived in Christchurch.
So how old were you when you were baptised?
I was 11.
11.
Yeah.
And do you remember, was there any pivotal moments that that you remember that stand out as being really life-changing around that time? Okay,
I guess living in New Zealand, it's a gorgeous country, and there's the snow and there's the ice. Yes. And Dad being very much an outdoors man, we would go up on the weekends with the Pathfinders, and there's a place called Lake Linden. Yeah. And there was a little lodge by the lake. But we just went up one weekend just for the family, which was fairly rare, which was lovely. Yeah. So my brother and I, my brother's about 2 years younger than me, we decided we were going to go for a walk on the lake by ourselves. Yes. And the clouds started to come in and completely came over the lake. And so here are my brother and I lost in this white world.
Wow.
And
Were you scared?
I was.
Yeah.
I've been the older sister, but I was
Yeah.
only about 10, and I
Yeah.
thought, it's my responsibility. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so I'd think, okay, what would Dad want me to do? So I will stop and we'll pray.
Yeah.
So my brother and I, lost in this wilderness, stopped and
Wow.
prayed to God, and I really remember that. And then we found the shoreline, so we followed the shoreline back and got home.
Yes.
So what was really interesting for me is when Mum and Dad came back, we were sort of like excited because we'd got lost and we'd come home and we'd prayed, and Dad said, "What did you do?" I said, "We prayed." And he said, "Yes. What else did you do?" And I thought, "What do you mean?" But to me, it's like your relationship with God is a practical thing. So yes, of course you ask for God to look and care after you,
Yes.
but you also use the skills and the intelligence that He's given you. And I think that kind of a philosophy I learnt very much modelled by my father, who was a youth worker and used nature as that, as we say, that second book of God.
Yes.
And developing skills of resilience and independence and connection and learning through those types of experiences.
Wow, and from knowing you, I know that that's very much part of your life, and it has been over the years, just enjoying nature and I guess exploring that with your own students and your family, which we'll hear about a bit more in a little while.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about, you got baptised. Was your church a very supportive community? Did you enjoy going to church, and were you involved in areas? Tell me a bit more about that.
Sure. I went to a church in Christchurch, New Zealand, and the school that I went to was actually on the same grounds as the church.
Okay.
It was called Papanui.
Yeah.
So went to school during the 5 days, and then we went to church there on the weekend, pathfinders during the week. It was very much a community, feeling very supported, feeling very attached,
Yes.
having Bible studies, and I loved being part of the church. And I guess when I was younger, I was surprised that the church would let us as young people be involved. For example, the Pathfinders were invited to take the church service.
Wow.
And I guess, this is in the 60s, so it's a little bit more, youth weren't up the front as much as they perhaps are these days in Australia. And I clearly remember feeling very honoured and blessed to be able to be part of a young group of people that got up and be able to take a service for the church. And I guess there's a really good, strong message out of that is, if we want our children and our young people to be connected to God, we allow them to lead as well, because it engages them in what they do.
Yeah, that's great. And for that to be a strong memory, it's obviously stuck with you all these years, and something that you try to foster in your students over the years.
Definitely, because I think no matter the age, whether it is from like a little 5-year-old up to 20, 30, whatever, everybody has a story that's very meaningful, and if we give them the space to be able to share that, then you grow and you learn from sharing, you learn from hearing other people's stories, and you grow a real connection to God. So I love to see young people getting up and taking their own leadership, whether it's through music or through speaking or, just in the background, getting things ready, whatever it is.
That's so great. Julia, I want to hear more about your story in a moment. Please don't go away. When we come back, we'll hear more of Julia's story. Hi, welcome back to Teachers Talk. Julia, tell me, have you always been an Adventist?
I have actually. I've grown up in an Adventist family. I'm a fourth generation Adventist.
Wow.
Yeah, my great-grandmother in the early 1900s, she was the daughter of a sea captain, and I think she was a bit of a rebel.
Right.
Because can you imagine, in the early 1900s, at 16, she ran away to sea.
Really?
So it's something that you wouldn't normally consider.
No.
So she ran away to sea from England.
Yes.
And arrived in New Zealand, met a Yorkshire man on the boat.
Oh.
They married and settled in Wellington. An evangelist came to their door and they decided that they would be baptised into the Adventist Church.
Wow, what a story.
Yes,
wow.
yes. So, and on my father's side, likewise, is third, fourth generation Adventist. So it's been I guess it's just part of my normal life, being an Adventist.
Yeah. And so what about the teaching experience? Have you grown up with parents that are teachers, or did you always want to be a teacher?
Yeah, I think teaching is being part of the family.
Right.
Mum and Dad both trained at Avondale as teachers. My grandfather was president of a number of conferences in Australia.
Was he?
But then when he retired, he then, as a volunteer, taught Bible at Avondale for 20 years. And he said they were the best years of his life, being able to teach and share about the Bible with the students. So, I've always wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, that's great. So did you go to Avondale, or did you?
I did.
You did?
Yes. Went to Avondale and studied primary school teaching.
Yes.
And graduated and got invited into the office, and they said, we'd like you to teach high school. And I went, what? I trained as a primary school teacher.
Yeah. So did you teach primary school at all?
No, I accepted the position because I'd done physical education. We were the first graduates, and so I started teaching in high school and said, oh no, I'd really like to teach primary. Went back to primary and said, no, actually I enjoy the high school, and did some more training. So I've taught both primary and high school.
Yes.
And I think that's been, mostly in high school, I think that's been beneficial because in my role now as a principal of a prep to year 12 school, it means that you understand the needs of students and staff.
That's great. So have you had any international experiences?
Yes, I have. When I was at Avondale, a friend and I decided we'd like to go and do volunteer service. And even though Dad was a youth worker, he's like, oh no, my own little daughter going overseas. It's a bit more confronting when it's your own children. So we looked around and we wanted to go to an orphanage in Jordan, but it wasn't open.
Right.
And we ended up going to Korea, South Korea.
Really?
Yeah, and teaching English there in Seoul, the capital.
Yes.
And we taught English in the morning and in the afternoons to adults.
Right.
Conversational English, and it was just one of the most amazing years of my life.
Really?
Yes.
So you would have been about 18 or 19, were you?
Yeah, I was 18. So here's this, just young, a little bit shy girl going and living in a completely different country. And as you know, because of the war, it's mostly American English that's spoken there. So they didn't really understand our accent. We sort of had to learn that because we were the first Australians there. And I learnt so much because it's a country with a very rich history where Buddhism is a very strong part of their culture. But since the war, Christianity had grown. And during the day, you would go around with the students and they just wanted to talk. And of course, we wanted to share about God with them as well. So it is an amazing opportunity, and it was lovely to see some of the students baptised at the end of my year working there in Seoul. But I learnt a lot from just listening to people there as well, and it broadened my understanding of the world.
That's great. That's great. So, are there any particular experience that stand out to you from being there? I mean, it sounds like you had some pretty big ones with students getting baptised and that kind of thing. For example, one of the students, he would often act as a tour guide for us because you go around and see different places. They want to invite you to go. He desperately wanted to become an Adventist. It was very difficult for him because his parents, being Buddhist, wanted he, as their only son, to be able to continue to honour the spirit, to, in the shrine, etc. So it causes a lot of conflict for him to be able to convert to become an Adventist Christian. And you see the struggle because he loves his parents, but he loves God. And he did take that step and was baptised in the last month that I was there in Korea. But you can see how difficult it is sometimes. Yeah, obviously your personal connection and your friendship with your students is an important part of their interest in Christianity and in Adventism. So that's, praise God that you were able to minister in that kind of way.
because it's quite funny. You have to, you take services, etc. And because the people that are coming speak Korean, not much English, you have a translator.
Yeah.
And one of my students, who was only a mid-level, was translating, and I was telling a story about an ant, as a parable, and he thought it was an aunt. Oh. And so he was translating the story as if it was people, but it was actually animals. So you think God has got to be blessing when you have this mix of language, and yet people still learn and hear the message. It's not because of you, it's because of God working through people.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So was there anything that inspired you to continue teaching? I mean, obviously you had these great experiences, and did you feel that God was really leading in that way in terms of your future career in teaching?
I think so, because I came back to Australia and finished the degree, and then a little later on, when I had my own daughter, I wanted to work part-time, and there was an amazing man, Ewan Brown, who was a counsellor at the school that I worked at part-time, and he mentored me very much. He was a man of God who taught me that the value of listening. And when you listen to people, they just are able to open up and share. And it's a real honour to be able to connect with people like that. And to know, this was what Jesus did as well. You know, he would sit and listen to people just in a humble way. And the skills that I learned from him were amazing. And he put me in contact, for example, working with the Department of Corrective Services. So these are people that have broken the law, through firearms or through stealing or through drug dealing. People with broken lives, really. And they would be ordered by court to participate in what was called group, just to try and help them to develop skills to live in a healthy way. And so Ewan was able to be a mentor for me, to have this amazing experience in listening to people who have had such troubled lives. I learned so much just by listening to their stories and helping them to reframe what has happened to them. And I think that's what God does for us, because we always have difficult parts in our lives. He reframes that and says, I'm with you, you will learn from this and you can share with others. And what a great skill to learn as a teacher, to listen, as you say. That's just, it's so central, and it's such an important skill. So that's wonderful. And I know you personally, and you're such an amazing teacher and an amazing person. So I'd love to talk a bit more about this in a moment, and what you're currently doing. So please don't go away. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Teachers Talk. Julia, it's been amazing hearing your story, and I'd love to hear a bit more about your experiences in teaching and where you've taught and that kind of thing. Sure. I've taught in a few different places, at TAFE and universities and with corrective services, but most of my teaching life has been actually in the Adventist school system, and that's been a real blessing.
Right. And tell me a bit about the special, unique elements of Adventist education, since you have taught outside of Adventist education. What have you found really special or unique about it?
I think it doesn't matter what school you're teaching, whether it's in Queensland or New South Wales or wherever it is, there is something very unique. When you walk through the doors of an Adventist school, there's something special. I will have people from outside independent schools come in and say, there's something special about this school, what is it? And I think it's because God is there, and because we model that love of God, it's very much a supportive environment. academic learning is important and rigour is important.
Yes.
Helping students to learn, of course, that's core to what we do.
Yeah.
But even more than that is the values that we have as Adventist educators. And what's surprising, I'm currently principal of Sydney Adventist College, which is an inner west urban school, very multicultural, over 30 different nationalities.
Wow.
And so we have people say, we're not Adventists, can we enrol in your school? They might be Hindu, they might be Buddhist, they might be a different Christian denomination. And I say to them, our core values are similar to your core values. It's about respecting each other,
yes.
and that's important. And I say we also ask that you honour our faith in God and our perspective and understandings of the Bible.
Yes.
We keep the Sabbath, and we want to honour that. We have prayer every morning, we have worship, we pray during the day. That's special, because when you take time to do that, you establish a relationship, not just with God, but you're establishing a relationship with other people and having a quiet moment to settle yourself to be able to then focus on what you do.
Yeah.
So I think for students, it's important. And it makes their learning environment one where they feel comfortable.
Yes.
They enjoy being at school. They're out in the playground, they're playing volleyball, they're playing touch football, they're rehearsing for a choir. We've got year 11s helping year 7s and year 5s. And so that just supportive environment is a very important part of Adventist Christian education.
Oh, that's great. It's so great. So tell me about being a principal, of the challenges and the joys that stand out to you. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's a great honour. It's a real blessing, because you get to talk to so many different people on different levels.
Yes.
It's a challenge as well.
Yes.
My background is PDHPE, and then got asked to apply for this position, and it's great. Its leadership is a learning curve.
Yes.
But working with staff, an excellent team, people that are committed to what they do, with students who want to learn. They'll have their hassles and they'll come into my office and say, "Miss, can I talk to you?" So we'll sit down together and just talk through some things. And it's just a real honour to be able to share with people, to be able to guide. It's a challenge sometimes making decisions and working with that, but it's excellent.
That's great. So tell me, can you really see, looking back over your life, can you really see there have been pivotal moments where God has really led you into where you currently are?
Yeah, like if I looked back, I've been in education now, for 30 years, and when I first started, I would not have imagined being where I am. And you can see, sometimes it feels like a crossroads and you don't know which way to take. And then you look back and see, oh, that's God's hand. He led me to go this way, or he's led me to go that way, so that you develop skills that you can get to share to be part of other people's lives. So definitely.
That's great. And is there a particular Bible character that has inspired you over the years?
I guess there is.
Yeah.
I remember as a little girl, I loved all the little Bible stories and, my Bible friends, and one of them was called Little Maid. And so being a girl myself, that really sort of triggered my imagination. Here's this girl taken from her family in Israel, taken to Syria. And you can imagine being a young female, dispossessed, like a refugee in another country, and even worse than that, you're a slave. And yet, here's this young girl, she had a strong belief in God, and she was taken into a household of Naaman, who was a very important commander in the army, and she was made to the wife. She wasn't saying, I'm so unimportant that I'm not going to let others know about God. My life has been ruined. I've been torn apart from my family. I'm just going to go into despair and never believe in God again. Here is someone who's still let her light shine and who's still connected to God and able to share that with other people. So I think she's very inspiring, and the fact, that here's someone from a different country, she's a female, she's young, and she let God's light shine through her. Imagine someone who's just a nothing saying to one of the most important people in the country, you have a sickness, my God can heal you. Now, what a moment of faith is that?
Absolutely.
How does she know that God's going to heal this person? How does she dare to say something like that?
Yeah.
But God honoured that through her witness. Naaman was healed of his leprosy. And that very powerful statement. There's only 20 words that she speaks in the Bible. There are only a few verses, and yet what a message is there, that if you honour God, that you can take that passion and God will work through you.
Julia, that story of Little Maid is a really inspiring story, and it has been inspiring to me too over the years. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
I'd also just like to know, how have you found the transition from going from a physical education teacher into a principal's role?
It's been interesting, but I think physical education is very much about learning about myself and about others through physical activity and through teamwork. And one of the mediums for that is getting outside, through camps and recreation. And that's, like that second book of nature of God. And that really allows you then to connect with people and provide an opportunity for them to share when they're faced by a high risk. And so here I am transitioning from PE into administrator. It's a risk for me too, but there's an opportunity for me to connect, because I think one of the most important things in Adventist education is allowing students to make a decision to commit their lives to God. And I know last year when we had some of our students baptised, that's a really special moment. You see that they've committed their life to Jesus and they want to let that shine to others. And that for me is the key to Adventist education, because if I can connect to God and if I can provide the opportunity for students to connect to God and their families, then I know that God will look after them and they will be blessed in what they do and be able to share that with other people.
Absolutely, that is certainly the goal of Adventist education. Julia, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's just been lovely hearing your story. And thank you for joining us here at Teachers Talk. We hope you can join us again next time.